There we go. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to the Sage Live of November 2024. My name is Niku Sami. I work at Slack. So at the lab, I support training and development, and I'm also the lead for Slack's professional growth Sage group. Basically, my whole job is to help people learn, and I've been doing that for about 5 years at the lab. So before we get started, let me briefly explain what the Sage Journey is all about and how the Sage Live fits into that journey. So the SAGE Journey is a program whose mission is to inspire and encourage students to explore STEM careers for their future. We do this by offering free summer camps, paid internships, professional growth sessions, and many opportunities to connect with professionals who care about you and your future. Sage Live is a part of the SAGE Journey. It's an online gathering of students who have attended summer camp and are curious about the next steps in their SAGE journey. It's also a time to reconnect with SAGE volunteers. It's held monthly via Zoom between the months of August and May. The topics covered are relevant to your journey, whether it's career related, like the Designing Your Life session, resume workshop, how to prepare for an interview, or new and exciting topics such as quantum computing, AI, and machine learning. So today we will talk about resumes and cover letters. Our speaker is Erin Coley, who I have the pleasure of working with at Slack. Erin is the leader of talent acquisition at Slack and has been with the lab for over 6 years. Prior to Slack, she worked for over 15 years at a private nonprofit research and development company, also in talent acquisition. So she definitely knows what she's talking about. Erin, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I do have slides. I absolutely want to make this interactive. So I do have the chat up if folks are more comfortable asking questions through chat. Also, feel free to come off mute and just ask me questions as we go, and we will go forth. All right. So I'm going to start my sharing. Now, let me actually, before I start sharing, I'm going to put it into presentation view, the slides, because I have to flip the, okay, swap presenter view. Oh, actually, nope, I have to share first because it takes your Zoom away, things you learn. All right, here we go. Presentation view, flip the displays. Okay, is everyone seeing the Sage slides? All right, I see a couple nods and a thumbs up. I'm going forth. So we're going to talk today about resumes and cover letters. And depending upon our time, I actually have a couple of samples of ones that I have taken and modified so we can look at those. So what is a resume? Of course, you guys are all like, oh, we know this. But it's a summary of your qualifications. It should be an individualized and targeted document, meaning you don't want to, it's not a one size fits all. It's a tool to get you an interview. It might be a tool to get you considered for a job. It is a marketing tool of yourself. So when you think about starting your resume, you don't have to focus just on paid employment. So thinking about yourself, what accomplishments, it could be classes, clubs, extracurricular organizations, volunteer work, things you do for your friends and family. It doesn't necessarily have to be only focused on your jobs, and you will categorize kind of those different experiences. You also want to think about the employer. We'll talk in a little bit about how you will likely have one resume that has everything, and then based on what you're applying to, you will modify it. And so understand from your employer what's important to them. What does the job description say? If you know someone who works there, or if you know someone who used to work there, check in with them. What's important? And always think about the top is the most important when you're scanning a resume. So most important on top, least important on the bottom. So you always want to make your name at the top, big and bold. People don't want to have to, who am I looking for? Who is this? I'll also say, we'll talk about how you name your file, and I'll give you personal thoughts on that. You want to choose a font that's easy to read. If you're squinting when you're looking at it on a computer, employers don't want to have to squint either. You always want to include, now this, oops, wrong one. So you don't necessarily have to include your address. If you're at school and you're applying for a job at school, you might put your city and state. You want to make sure you include your information, be it your cell phone and email, whatever you use there. Most companies will require an email. If you are applying at home and you're going to be for a job, during the summer where you're going to be at home, then you would want to put your home city and state, if you will. And think about if you're putting your phone number and you're using an email, if your email is erinsilly@gmail.com, is that the one you want to use for work, for potential work? Maybe not. Maybe I would choose Erin Coley as my @gmail.com, or Erin C, if that's available. It's not, but so something that's a little bit professional. Your voicemail as well. If people are going to potentially be calling you, you don't want to have it just be, hey, you got my beep? Leave a message. You want to say something that, hi, you've reached Erin, something that sounds a little bit more professional. If you have any website, your LinkedIn profile, any of that information, you can also include that on your resume. And you want to make sure whatever social media you put on there is professional. So think about, your photos that are on there. If you're putting LinkedIn, yeah. And so often on a resume, there is a professional summary. Some people use an objective. I prefer a professional summary, but it should be a concise statement, kind of covering a little bit about your professional experience, background, interest, key knowledge, relevant experience, again, specific to the job. So that is something, either your professional summary or your objective, that will always be tailored, unless you're applying to, if they have 3 interns in, I'm making something up here, in mechanical engineering, they might be the same one. Other than that, you would want to make sure that it is specific to the organization. And we'll talk about this more, kind of making it very tailored, when we chat a little bit about cover letters. Okay, I'm still not seeing any questions, so I'm keeping going. So here is a couple examples, and I'll let you guys read these to yourselves. So very directed. It sort of says a little bit about you and what you're applying to. It's interesting. Both of those are low sol almost. So your coursework. A lot of organizations do want to see GPA. Now, as we know, sometimes when we're in school, the GPA that you have for your major, the classes that you're really interested in might be higher than your overall GPA. And if that's the case, you are absolutely okay to list both, or just to list your major GPA. But then you would want to make sure you state that, because one of the things you never want to do is, well, I'll just say it, you don't want to lie on your resume. And you will also want to include the relevant coursework. You don't necessarily need to list every class you've ever taken unless it's relevant. And that's where, again, you might have one resume that is sort of like your primary resume that you have list every class, and then based on the position, you'll modify and change that. And then I say, publications, projects, anything that's sort of relevant for that job, you want to include those as well. And again, that could be, I did a project for a class that not paid, it could have been an extracurricular. That's fine too. So these are some examples. Different coursework that would be relevant. You can see this expected. I should update this to, really future. But one of the things I'll say is, so let's pretend this said 25. That makes sense, right? Expected in May of 25. If you just say May 25, for the most part, that's going to make sense. But you want to make sure you're not saying you've already graduated if you haven't. So you want to list your professional experience in reverse chronological. So I got a question in the chat. These are written as sentences but weren't full sentences. Would you typically write in a full sentence? And
Erin, that was about the objective,
yes.
yeah.
So you can make them full sentence. So to be honest, that's up to you. You can do it in more of a bulleted. You're right. These weren't fully, what you think of as a complete sentence. You can do it whatever you feel most comfortable with. So you're welcome. So there's another question about your graduation year. So it depends. If the job requires a degree, then you would want to. Now, let's look at me. You guys can tell I've been in the workforce. If we just added up I said over 15 years and 6 years at Slack, right? That's over 20 years in the workforce. I do not list my graduation year on my resume. It was not on the resume that I submitted to Slack when I applied for the job, because I've been around the block a little bit. But at the beginning, when you're new, then you would want to have that, because you would want them to know that you have completed a degree. And I think you don't necessarily have to have the month. I truly don't remember if I got my bachelor's in May or June. Same with my master's. I don't remember what month it was. And they're not going to be too concerned about that. Typically it's May, June. Sometimes folks, it's December. January could be as well. But I would say depends on it. So if you're a senior in college, a senior in high school, and they say you need to have a high school diploma or conversely a college degree, you would want to say expected. Yes, you can also put undergraduate student or expected degree date. That would work as well. It depends on the job. If it says must be enrolled in a university, you want to make sure you have that, but you don't necessarily have to have the year. If they say you need to be a rising senior, a rising junior, then you would want to make sure that that's included there. So for the person who's going to look at the resume, they can easily say, yep, meets the qualifications. So on professional experience, everything on your resume is the most recent on the top, right? So it's reverse chronological order. My experience has, Slack at the top, and then it has SRI there, and, all my other experience below that. You definitely want job title and the organization. Time frame, you can put it in whatever makes sense to you. You definitely do not need day, month, year. You can put month, year. You can put just the year. It depends on how much experience you have. If it was a summer job, it's absolutely okay to say June to August. You can include city and state. That's not as relevant. And so bullet points are the easiest to read, where you want to focus on what you did, what skills you used and developed, what tools, like if you used a specific type of program, and any kind of results. And list the bullets in order of importance. Like if you spent the whole summer doing one thing, that's probably going to be at the top. And then you also did a few other things that might get added in. As much as possible, use action verbs and be concise with your tense. So if it's a past job, it's okay to have past tense. If it is your current job, it's okay to have current, what do you call that? Present tense. Woo, lost it there for a moment. Present tense for your current job and past tense for the others. You can also keep it in everything present tense if you want, and then just be consistent all the way throughout. And if, this is where on the tailoring, use a position description. If you call it something slightly different, but it means the same thing as what the description is, use the description language. Again, it allows somebody to say, yes, this meets what I'm looking for. So here are some bullet point examples. And you'll notice these all have periods. They're not complete sentences. You don't have to have periods. My personal philosophy is do what's comfortable, but be consistent. If you want to have a period at the end, that's fine. If you don't want to, that's fine. Just be consistent. So tutored 10 undergraduate students, gathered a range, corrected research data, conducted habit-based bird monitoring, organized and implemented a 2-day fundraising event. So this is really, really getting all of those kind of details. And these are not necessarily full sentences. You're not saying I did this, but hopefully this gives an example. Any questions on these before I move on? I have the chat over here, which is why I'm kind of looking over there. Okay. So relevant skills, programming, software, languages, proficiency level. So if you are beginning Spanish, it's okay to say beginning Spanish. If you are fluent, then you definitely want to do that. You want to make sure that that's noted. And even if it's not relevant, like if they don't require it, I think language is always a good thing to list. And if you think about, we'll look through some resumes. If the job is, your first job and it requires a degree, then your degree is going to be at the top. As you have more work experience, your degree might not necessarily be at the top. Your education might move. And same thing here, kind of depending upon what you're targeting. If it is a job that you don't have relevant skills, then you might move that section farther down on a resume. Any sort of professional associations, school associations, if you are part of the public debate group at school, I'm making stuff up here. If you volunteer, any kind of awards you have, as long as they're relevant, you want to list those. And of course, if you participated, I'm assuming it's not 100%, it's a science, but if you're going for a science job, your participation in science fairs is relevant as well. And of course, these are all like optional based on if it's relevant for you. No one resume is going to look the same. I didn't say that right, but I think you get my gist. So you do want to spell out your acronyms. Don't assume that everybody is going to know. I did already mention paying attention to kind of past and present tense. If you do list, oh, so these are our common issues. Yes. So, make sure if you can share the outcomes, remove unnecessary details. There's misnomers about how long a resume should be. And if it's really not relevant, it doesn't necessarily need to be on there. You don't have to make it fit the full page. Oh, I need 2 more lines. Okay, let me just make something up. Then I just increase the font slightly. If you really feel that strongly, change the margins. It'll be fine. And again, to try and use consistent formatting. It doesn't necessarily mean like if you list relevant skills, and we'll look at this in a minute, and they're bullets, and then when you talk about your work experience, you use full sentences, that's fine. But you wouldn't do, job 1, full sentences, job 2, bullets, job 3, full sentences. You wouldn't mix it up like that. All right, I'm going to keep going unless there's any questions. I thought I saw somebody come off mute for a brief moment. No? Okay. I'm moving so I can see the. Oh, I might have. Okay. So this presentation, which will be shared with you, has some resources, action verbs, this information on how to talk about different careers. Yeah, no worries. Resume fonts. So there's some resources here. And what I would say is if you can, share your resume, share your tips and tricks, ask your friends. Maybe there's somebody who's a grade higher than you that applied for a similar job. Ask what they used. You don't necessarily have to use their example, but it might be good for you to see. And then cover letters. Why a cover letter? So your resume is sort of the what. Your cover letter is why you're interested in that job. Why is the company relevant to you? How do your skills translate? Sometimes you have to help the employer see why you think your skills. So I'll say my first job in high school, I should say my first job outside of babysitting. I did lots of babysitting. I then worked I lived on the East Coast, and I worked at a seafood place where it was a wholesale retail place. So people came in and wanted to, purchase a pound of tuna, 3 swordfish pieces, a dozen crabs, and we had to sometimes steam them. Which was interesting. And so, it was a lot of customer service. I used a cash register. We had to count on our till. So all of those skills are relevant in terms of my job today. If you think about, I work with a lot of different people. I have to interact. Some people are grumpy. Some people are happy. There are challenges. They want something. I don't have it. They need something. I'm not able to help them. So all of those skills, while do I work in retail now? No. Do I work in a seafood industry? No. But all of those I can say helped me along the way. And I could, if I was applying for my next job, which in college I worked in the dorms at the front desk, checking people in, making sure you had their ID cards at night. I was able to talk about my customer service experience from the retail job and how it would fit, and how I had some challenging customers, and how I know there's going to be somebody at midnight who left their ID card, and how do we handle those types of situations. And you can share, how your internships benefit in a cover letter, the particular job that you're applying for. Similar to your resume, you're going to personalize it for each job. And then you'll end with a request. I'd love to hear more about the job. I'd love to speak with you. I'm really interested in this position and I'm available to talk. You want to make sure that they know that you're really interested. And you also want to do consistent formatting. So if you think about however you title the top, and we'll look at a couple of resumes here in a minute, however you title that, use that for your cover letter. It's almost like you're building your own stationery. So that makes it really easy. So this is the end of the presentation. I have some samples to show. So my last slide is just a thank you. I appreciate everyone listening to me ramble. I'm going to stop sharing and get us back on just you guys. What additional questions might I answer for you all? Give me specifics and I'll give you my opinions. I'm not shy. Everyone needing some beverage today?
Maya has raised her hand.
Hi, sorry, I have it's really loud here, so I hope you can hear me all right. But
Yes, we
basically,
can.
yeah, so I'm a current high school senior and I am applying to STEM programs, right? But a lot of my experience is with humanities, which definitely does help me right now with my research paper writing, and I've done some like debate speech, and I want to include that on my resume too, right? To show that I have like a line from a humanities system, like how I've grown over the years, but I'm kind of having trouble fitting it onto one page or just trying to find like the most relevant opportunities. So I wanted to know how I could change that.
Well, so I think it's going to, in terms of your humanities, your experience, especially your research experience, you want to make sure you highlight that, right? I think those are absolutely relevant, transferable skills. I don't know what else you have on your resume. I'll say that, I had jobs where had them for a long time. I didn't have as many like just summer jobs. And so when it came to putting things on my resume, I didn't have a lot. But you don't have to list every summer job on your resume. So depending upon how that fits. And it's also okay to make it a page and a half. Or if you are going to do a cover letter, maybe you pull out some of the things that you want to expand upon pull it out so it's not necessarily reflective as detailed on your resume and say that in your cover letter. Does that help?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So we have a couple of questions in the chat. I was wondering, how do we gauge proficiency in a skill? Oof, that's a hard question because I mean, I think you have to use your own best judgment, right? I would say I have average proficiency in Excel, for example. I use it all the time in my job, running reports. But every time I have to do a pivot table, I likely need to Google how to do a pivot table because I don't do it all the time. But does that make it so that I don't know how to do it? No, I know what a pivot table is. I know the benefit of a pivot table. It's just not something I do on a regular basis, so it's something I have to look up. So I would say I have intermediate Excel skills, just giving that as an example. Because I don't do a lot of the formulas, etc. So it works for me, but I don't have it. So I would say you have to kind of gauge. And you can also, like if you're in a class, ask your professor. I feel I have these kinds of things. Ask them and see what they say. Ask another friend who also has similar skills. So, good follow-up question. Instead of mild proficiency, I would say learning, Java, learning whatever you're learning programming, a specific language. Just say that. Oops. Alrighty. Oh, and yep. Niku added something in the chat. So there another one, as a freshman in college, I'm not finished with my first semester. How much of my high school experience can I include? Where do I draw the line? I think it's going to depend on what you're applying for, right? So you can include your high school experience. My guess is you'll want to indicate that you did graduate from high school, but it's going to really depend on what you're applying for. So let's say if you are applying for a STEM internship and you have a lot of stuff that aren't relevant, then you may not want to include that. Or you may just say, a job, but not give as many details. So maybe just one bullet and not 3 bullets, if you will. Does that make sense? All right. Would you guys like to see my mock-ups of a few resumes?
Oh, Erin, there was one more in the
Oh,
chat. It was, how can I effectively use LinkedIn as a high schooler to build my resume? Sorry if you already went over that.
no, I did not specifically. So, so essentially, LinkedIn is another version of a resume. Some people are very detailed and some people aren't. So you can use LinkedIn to share. It has options to list experience. You can list your jobs through there as well. I would say if you know that you're targeting a particular type of job, then you want to make sure that your LinkedIn presence is relevant to that. So if you are going for a STEM and you have some experience that isn't as related, you can choose to highlight that or to not highlight that. That's sort of what you think makes the most sense. There isn't going to be a negative to having more on your LinkedIn profile than what you have on your resume. Somehow I've lost the chat. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Would you guys like to see a few resumes? All right. Let me share again. Oh, let's move that. All right. So what I have here, and unfortunately I didn't, let's take sort of a before, let's see, there, it's Jane and Janet. So I think that's the after. Hold on a quick second. Jane with check changes. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me organize this a little bit better on my screen here. Aha, here we go. All right. Back to sharing. All right, so here is Jane's original resume with essentially 2.5 pages. So she listed every honor that she had, all the different languages that she'd ever taken. a lot of details around her extracurricular activities, a lot of details on volunteer work, and essentially decided to make it so that it is on one page, keeping a lot of the relevant info, again, sort of, and that's where this would be the primary resume, if you will. You want to have all of this, and you can see here, this person had their elementary and their middle school. Like, once you have your high school, it's not relevant. So we excluded that on the next, version. They had taken some college courses while in high school, so certainly wanted to make sure that that was included. Same thing with the volunteer and work activities, blending that. And so still provided plenty of details here, but honed it to make it a little bit more relevant. And then languages, instead of listed how many classes, etc., you think about what we had here under languages, took it from 1st to 8th grade, took this 9th and 10th grade, took this here, just all those details are not necessary. And so here it is, just having languages and listing the kind of the strongest in terms of proficiency first. And so this would be the opportunity for somebody to then ask, oh, Portuguese, what's your level of expertise in that? And then awards, making them the most recent and not necessarily all the awards that the person had ever done. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so let me close out Jane. And let's pull up Janet. So this was the original. They had their achievements, activities, volunteer experience, and skills. And I went through and honed that, where some of it is just moving it. So I moved things. There should be a version. Let's see. Where's my little folder? I have so many things open on my computer screen at the moment. Here we go. So this is the after, where, this was the most relevant. So we put it on top, and then it's chronologically reverse from there. Whereas they had in new, kind of time-based, 15, 16, 17, 18, 16. So this was actually all over the place. And you want to do reverse chronological. And then same thing on activities, really kind of honing those, experience, making it, reverse chronological, 18, 17 to present, 16 to present, 16 to present, and then listing their skills here. Now, if the skills they listed were really relevant for the job, you might put those on top. If education is not as critical, that might move to the bottom. So again, most important, always your name at the top, least important. So, and these are ones that, you know, stylistically look very different. I happen to be somebody that I probably would have bolded my name. I might not have put my full address. I might have just put San Jose, skipped the zip. Definitely how to reach someone, you want to have that. So these are all the things that you know you can look at and see, hey, I feel comfortable with this or I'm not comfortable with that. So I covered a lot. I feel like I've just been talking and talking. I know we don't have to cover the whole 90 minutes, but anybody have any additional questions? Somebody wants to share their resume and we can look at it. If you have specific questions, I'd be happy to do that. Either now or in the future, because you will have my email on the slides.
Question. But I wanted to add one more thing to somebody's question earlier about how do I know what's relevant to put on my resume? Another recommendation, along with all the great stuff Erin said, was to look at the job description. They're probably going to list a lot of what they're looking for, and if you can make really clear connections between your experience and the things they want, then that's relevant to your resume, right? So that's a good key to look at as well.
Yep. That's one of your, before you get started, right? Really look at the job description, look at the employer, understand what's important to them. You know, at Slack, we talk about our mission, vision, values, right? And our values include excellence, integrity, collaboration, respect, and Nico, I forgot the last one. Creativity. And so, you know, that those are the types of things that you should highlight on your resume, you know, all of those aspects, because that's important here at Slack. If a company has something like that, that's great to list that, even if it's not necessarily, you know, you have experience in the humanities. This is something more STEM focused. You can talk through your creativity of how you've taken that something along a journey, if you will. I think your SAGE experience at either Slack or another national lab for the summer is something you want to highlight. I think that is, employers always want to know that somebody is interested in learning, because we don't want to just be static in what we're doing.
One more came in the chat for you. So it doesn't have to have your experience. So let me say a couple different things. One, there's opportunities to get experience without it being a job. It could be volunteering. And so I think listing that, you don't necessarily have to have, all of your experience does not have to be paid employment. If you were a TA for a class and you know, did extra work in a lab, that's 100% relevant, even though you weren't paid for it, even though you volunteered. All of that is important to include. Now, if somebody wants you to know a specific programming language and you don't know it, you might be able to say, I've learned these other programs and I learn new programs quickly. And I think that that's okay to put on there as well, because there are going to be times that they list something that you don't have, and it's okay. Now, you may or may not get called for that, but I think when you look at a list of requirements,
Most employers are not thinking you have to have 100% of everyone. If they have 6 things listed and you have 5 out of the 6, apply. And show for that 6th one, that 6th requirement, where you have relevant experience that's similar if it's not exact that. So including professional development things and talks, you can absolutely include it, especially if it's relevant. If you have attended talks on a particular topic that's relevant to the job, yes, it shows you're interested in the field. It shows that you're spending time on that topic. So yes, you may not have done the research yourself, but you're learning about it or you're growing your skills. That's absolutely relevant.
I have a follow-up question about that.
Sure.
So let's say the talk was at a college and you're applying to a different college, but you want to include that you went to a talk at the specific college. Do you include the name of the college or just the um the name of the talk or what the talk is about? Is what I'm asking is the college relevant or like where you attended the talk? Is it relevant or is it just the topic of the talk that is relevant?
So I would say
Mm.
on a resume, the topic of the talk. On a cover letter, if you're saying I have, if you're applying to a school and you have already attended a seminar at that school, that really shows that you're interested in that university. So I think including that, but that might be in a cover letter, that you would put that and not necessarily on your resume. If it could be on your resume if you have the space. So it's really gonna, if you are applying, and I'm making stuff up here now, to UC Berkeley and you attended a class at UC Santa Cruz, that's all in the UC system. That might be relevant. That's good to know. If you attended at University of San Francisco and you're applying for a job somewhere else, is it relevant? Maybe not. If it's relevant because it's in the location, sure, include it. There's no harm in including it unless you think it's not going to be of value to include it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
There's no right or wrong, I'm sorry to say. I think it's going to have to be your own judgment, yeah. Any other questions? I like to give space because I'm a yapper. Should we conclude?
Just gonna say, if there are no other questions, oh wait, there's a question. Okay, there's one coming. Okay.
All right.
No
No
worries.
worries. And you can come off mute, Joanna, if that's.
Can't wait to see this question.
The pressure. No, there's no pressure.
Hey, Erin, while Joanne finishes typing, can I ask you, and how about sports or maybe just specifically races? Is that, I don't know, like if you train for half a marathon or something like that, should we include that? Does that tell us a little bit about anything of our personality?
Sure. Determination. I think team sports is always a great thing. It doesn't have to be a team sport. If you're a swimmer, you're still building your skills. It shows you stick with something. So yeah, I think including that is relevant. Training for half marathon, that's also, really shows you're building those skills. So it doesn't necessarily mean if you're applying for a job that, that's not relevant, but your activities, I think that's okay to include for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So the question in the chat, so I would say if the internship is looking for more juniors and seniors, it's less, my guess is it's less the years and more the type of experience that you may get as a junior and senior. So, again, it's been a while since I went to college, but what I remember is your first couple of years, you're often taking very general ed, right? You're getting all your requirements out of your way, but you might also be taking relevant courses. So what I would say is if you have some relevant courses for the requirements of the job, then it's okay to go ahead and apply. And I would highlight those relevant courses. So if they want you to have had, I'm going to make something up here, advanced, I don't even know, I want to say physics, but I don't even know if there is an advanced physics class. I'm not a physics person, obviously. But you can also say you took similar courses in high school. So you can take your experience and go ahead and express your interest in that. So, and I would say, well, you could also in your cover letter, while I'm not yet a junior, I've taken classes. So you can acknowledge it, but also give where you do feel like you meet what they're looking for. Hopefully, Joanne, that makes sense. All right. Great.
I think that was going to be our last question, unless anyone has any last minute ones to add on for us. All right. Danny, do you want to share this one? Or I can share. Okay. All right, great. Well, that concludes our session today. Thank you, everybody, for attending. So just a couple of reminders that you'll see on the slide. You can follow us on social media at Sage Camp. Sage Live is one Saturday a month, same time as today, and stay tuned for our next Sage Live on Saturday, December 7th. We're going to have a workshop on high school internship applications and SUI and CCI internship applications. So it'll be a really good way to take what you've learned today and actually practice doing it for these applications, for these internships, if that's something you're interested in doing, which we of course encourage you to do. And then there's some more Sage contact information down there, info@mysagejourney.org. And again, thank you everybody for attending.